So absolutely, thanks. Quick history: I was a coaching consultant and an executive coaching consultant. Um, really, actually, that's not true. I retired officially from my career at the age of about 27. I worked in Parliament and ran a not-for-profit organization that helped teach businesses and communities how to lobby the new government in 1994 until 2002. By the time I was 27, I felt extremely burnt out. I was running an organization. I was dealing with some fairly high level politicians and parliamentarians and felt way out of my depth emotionally. There was a lot of times where I felt under pressure I didn't feel I could handle. So I decided to retire. And I went and lived in the Baviata Club for a while and applied some of the skills and learnings from working in that corporate space to some of the projects we do at a community level in the rural areas of the Eastern Cape. Found my mojo again 2 or 3 years later, after having been deeply inspired by the mountains and the fresh air, and became a coach, an executive coach, working with teams, helping executive teams and boards to get into flow, to become high performance teams, so that as a team they could really understand what required them to get into flow. And as I'm sure all of you know, because you've had your talent dynamics debrief, flow is a key principle both for your own life, but if you can then bring that into a team, it just completely is a game changer. There is no high performance team that does not have flow amongst them and between them and at an individual level. So I really focused on flow, and that's where I first came across talent dynamics and wealth dynamics. And I guess the first thing I'd like to say about it is that I found it very liberating. I stopped after trying to be a whole bunch of other people and a whole bunch of other different paths to success. And I could really just fall into and embrace my own path to success. And that's pretty much the last 15 years has felt that journey of more and more stepping into my flow. Robin mentioned it very briefly, where I'm now currently working as I'm head of global marketplaces for the Global Wealth Group. We run two marketplaces, digital investment platforms for commercial real estate around the world. Wealth Migrate is our more South African version. And then we have Private Wealth Global, which is a global investor base for more high net worth individuals around the world, institutions and funds. And we get commercial real estate opportunities presented to us from around the world, from really world-class real estate developers and investment companies. We then make those available to people around the world who would like to have a diversified offshore commercial real estate portfolio. So that's what I do. The reason I'm mentioning that is because it ties deeply into my role as a mechanic. So what I love doing is figuring out systems. And as Robin said, the space I'm in now is very system driven. It's how do we take something that's fairly complex and make it simple. So one of the things I love as a mechanic is taking things that are complex and making them simple. And that applies even more so to the concept of talent dynamics and wealth dynamics. And when you do that, one of the things us mechanics love is actually teaching. We love trying to share and communicate that knowledge with others. It fills me to be able to take something complex and get it across and make it really simple and easy to understand. So that's really my intention here tonight, is to take whatever questions you guys have around talent dynamics, wealth dynamics, and put them into as simple concepts. Now, you've all had a debrief. You all know who you are in terms of the profiles. So I'm not going to go into that. You've all been told I trained Robin, so I have absolute faith that he's done a pretty good job in making sure you understand your own profile. So what I want to do tonight is actually go much deeper. I want to take this conceptual space and take us much deeper into understanding some of the principles behind it. So that's my intention. So what I'd really like is if any of you have any questions about anything related to wealth dynamics, your profile, your team, what you need, what's working, what's not working, something you understand, please, I'd rather this was driven by that rather than by me and a boring slideshow. So the first thing I want to say is...
Let's just start in the difference between the wealth dynamics and the talent dynamics. It's just a question that's come up. I know you and I use it. Perhaps just tell the story of how wealth dynamics was previously really centered around the entrepreneur. And then there were a lot of people who said, well, hang on, I don't actually want to be an entrepreneur, right? That's not my desire, my profile, my passion. So what is there for me? So there was a break in that kind of sales process. So talent dynamics is the same test, same questions, There are 4 questions with just slightly different wording, where it's more in the team scenario, but the everything else is the same. So it's used, we use it interchangeably, but that's really where it comes on. Talent dynamics, in theory, the reports are supposed to be designed around the team dynamics, whereas wealth dynamics is very much more around your kind of the business owner creating wealth and being that entrepreneur. But they're actually the same test and the same profile insights.
Yeah, you're 100% right. When Roger Hamilton first developed this, he really developed it to help individuals find out how to become great entrepreneurs and their own path to wealth. And then he very quickly realized that's only half the picture. It's all very well me knowing, if you think about a rugby team or a soccer team, it's all very well me knowing that I'm great at being a forward or a back or a defender or whatever. But if I'm unable to know who else I should be playing with, then getting yourself into flow actually is almost impossible. And one of the key principles about flow is that you cannot get into flow by yourself. So I'm going to repeat that because I don't think a lot of people, when we do the debriefs, in particular on the entrepreneurial space, I don't think a lot of people really get that as deeply as they should. It is impossible to get into flow by yourself. The definition of flow is that you are taking value and you are passing it on. And the more you pass, the more you receive. All right. So flow is fundamentally about being able to operate in an environment where you're very clear on the value you add, and you are extremely good at being able to pass on that value to other people and know where you need value from other people. Now, in a team environment, firstly, you have to be able to get into flow. You have to be able to say, I can do this well, you can do that well, you need me, I need you. Let's keep passing the value that we're adding between us. And I think that's when Roger changed in his own mind his understanding of where his tool really could add value to the world. And shifting it from this concept of entrepreneurs, here's the path, go get it, to entrepreneurs, figure out what you need. But also as a team, you need to understand flow in that space of relationship to others, because without that, entrepreneurs get stuck and are never actually able to move forward and be successful. So I think that covers, Robin. If you want to add, please jump in. The comment I really... That's it. Yeah, the comment I really want to have about these profiles, and I'm not going to talk you through the slide, you can read it, but the real thing I'm trying to emphasize is that any model is fundamentally that. It is a model. It's not the reality. It is taking something complex. So I think there are 6 or 7 billion human beings on this planet, and we are trying to take that complexity where each one of us is individual and different, and have a model that helps us understand an aspect of ourselves and other aspect of other people without having to know all 6 billion's individual framework. And so a model is valuable because it simplifies complexity. If you think about any model in the world, that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to take complex things and figure out, are there strong dominating similarities that we can slowly reduce an understanding of something from 6 billion individuals to maybe 8 different kinds of personality. Now, that's very useful. It helps us engage. I don't have to know all 60 people in my team. If I just understand which of their profiles, I'll have a better understanding of how to deal with them. But whenever you model something, whenever you take something complex and make it simple, you lose the very nature of the complexity. And that means there will always be exceptions. Okay, so your profile is not a box. It is not something that we say, this is who you are, and that's all you are, this little box. It's an attempt to create value for you by giving you a summary, but the edges are blurred. They'll be blurred for all of us, that I don't fit exactly what may or may not be in my profile. I might have differences here or there, and please just understand that at no point in the next 20, 30 minutes am I at all trying to box you or say this is who you are. I have no clue as to who you are. Okay, so I'm just trying to use a model to share some thoughts and insights to get you thinking, maybe to ask different questions about how you can use this information both with yourself and others to add value and spread value. And fundamentally, even though there are 8 profiles, what's far more useful is to understand what lies under that. Now, talent dynamics and wealth dynamics came from ancient tradition, Chinese tradition, developed by Fuxi probably about 3,000 years ago, that really highlighted and was used by Jung of all, to just really show a lot of Jung's understanding of introverts, extroverts, a lot of his interpretations of not prototypes, stereotypes around the world were based by taking the work done by Fuchsie 3,000 years ago and retranslating it into something that was more modern people could use. But the bottom line is that there are 5 main energies. There's the dynamo on top, which is, I'm not going to go through this, Robin would have done it, but very much big picture thinking, creative energies, visionary. There's the blaze, which is all about people. It's about connection. It's about conversation. At the bottom, there's the steady, the down to the ground, very rooted, who experiences the world through what they can sense rather than their imagination, which is the opposite on the top. And then on the steel side, very analytical, they need certainty, they need clarity. And then the center is the one thing that belongs to everyone. No one has a claim on, for example, being a greater connection to spirit. That's the unifying concept. And in many of the understandings about this, we are all trying to achieve something, give meaning, give value to the world. And that's where the spirit sits. And in our different ways, we're all adding to it. When you have those, basically what it does is it helps you understand where you are as a profile by just figuring out how much of these 4 different energies any one person has. So, for example, in this case, this would very much be I'm sure you'd be able to guess down here. This would be a deal maker. They've got a lot of blaze, they've got a lot of tempo, so that would put them in the bottom. Robin, I did say that I'm not going to go through all the energies, etc. in detail. However, if there's anyone who would like it, I'm happy to go through that again if that's a request, just to really highlight. I've done it very briefly, but if people want more than what I've done already, I'm happy to give that in a bit more context. All right. Key concept for all of us in our lives, and particularly if you're entrepreneurs and business people, is value and leverage. Why this becomes so important is because when you're running a business, there are 2 things you have to get right. Value. Are you adding value? What value do you add to the people you're engaging with, to your clients, to your service providers? And then how do you take that value and leverage it to make money? Now, value is about trust. If someone trusts that you can deliver service, that you can deliver value, they'll pay you for it. Okay, so you'll be able to earn money. And then leverage is how many different routes or ways can you take that value to a market, to a client base. Now, I know Robin is very strong on value. If you go back and analyze his last 6 months worth of Facebook, almost every post is talking about, I add value. How can I add value? This is where I think I can add value. This is my commitment to adding value. So once you have value, it is useless if you don't have leverage. So leverage is about taking that value and making sure you're getting it out to the world. So why am I going on about this? Well, there are 2 different paths to leverage, and this is where talent dynamics comes in. You can leverage through people. So in other words, you can magnify. You can go to the blaze energy on the right-hand side, and a star leverages by standing up in front of 10,000 people and telling them about value. A deal maker leverages by going and finding the key people that they can get who might be interested in the value and getting more and more deals through that relationship. So you can leverage on one side through people, through the blaze energy and the people who are in that space. The other way to leverage is through the introverts, which are leveraging through systems. How do I put this online? How do I take my great burgers that I'm making and leverage it through franchises to get McDonald's? And it's a very different way of taking the same value. Now, the challenge many of us who sit in the leverage space sit with is, where do we find our value? I might have the ability and the passion and love standing in front of 10,000 people. I might know a lot of people who have got great deals, but I now need value to match to my leverage. And that's where a lot of the skill and the knowledge from the creators and the people at the bottom who are very good at service and at timing and knowing the right time, they bring value. And then that value gets leveraged by the people who understand how to leverage it through their analytics or through their connection. So just keep that in mind, because what so many of us as entrepreneurs do is we build a very strong leg. what I mean by that is, imagine that value and leverage are your two legs, and to go fast, you need to have two legs that are equally strong. But if your strengths, which we all have, if I have flow in creating value, for example, as a creator, and I build this massive leg on value, kind of like an Arnold Schwarzenegger leg, but my leverage leg is like teeny. There was a model in the 80s called Twiggy. And if I have a leg on my left side, like her leg, which was skinny and thin, you can imagine I'm not going to be successful trying to run fast because I got Arnold Schwarzenegger in the leg going boom, 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 and then I got Twiggy leg trying to chap and support. So one of the fundamentals in using these profiles in the system in your business is really keep thinking, which leg is the next one I need to put forward? Have I really grown value in the last while? Good. Now, where do I need to get into flow with other people to leverage that? Some of us might be very good at leveraging, and we've done a lot of work on leveraging. Now you need to figure out, okay, where do I go to find value that I can make money out of, I can create success by bringing that value into my leveraging networks. So always keep those two legs in your mind as you're growing your business. Value first, then leverage it. Once you've increased your leverage, then bring more value. Once you've brought more value, see how you can leverage it again, and really keep those two running. Robin, can I move on? Were there any questions? I feel like I'm lecturing, which I never like.
So let's just put that into more of a specific context, because a question came up again around, well, then how do we find those, or what is the value then of the different people, the different profiles? And traditionally here we're talking about that if you are a certain profile, we're looking for either 2 to 3 places to the right and look at a clockwise or an anti-clockwise situation, right? So you're referring to a team. And you referred to, in this case, 2 legs, but we know that to have a team that really covers as many of the profiles as possible, we're looking for at least 3. Because of those 3, we can, between ourselves, cover all the specific profiles. So when Dimitri asked, well, what is the reasoning behind that? Well, now you can start to see, especially if you put into the context of leverage, where that's going to look for. So a star profile who has the value of creating a following, painting a picture, attracting an audience, is also that's a value that they have, but they're needing something to share. Otherwise, content, a product or service, they want to also provide something valuable to other people. So someone like a mechanic who has a product or a service can partner with a star who has the value of also a lot of people who value that star's input or trust their opinion, who can then have a star who sells a mechanic service. And then there's the leverage there of people plus mass production, which is obviously the system that the mechanic is providing. And then we can start to see they are using each other or flowing into each other and keeping in their flow to actually make that money, right, to monetize it. Now, we might just say, well, great, we've got the 2 profiles at the top there, mechanic and a star, but we're now missing, in other words, losing out on the bottom section, the sensory stuff, that the trader profile who's going to work on customer service, because we know that they are really great at that. They are going to see the system and the people, and then coordinate that into customer service and obviously a prolonged cycle of business. So that's where exactly what Lyndon is saying. We want to use those different leverages, and we've always said, money goes where value is added. And of course, if you can monetize and multiply that, then things start opening up. But it's the team which is needed. And that's what Marisha also said, well, how does this work for one business, a single business person? And in that scenario, we are really referring to, you may be the single business owner, but you're going to be looking for and relying on different people as well in that scenario. So Marisha, as we know, you are a mechanic profile, you have a business where you're the sole proprietor, but we also know that you have partnered up with a star profile who promotes your services and your business. So there we go, you're already using his value component of his following, his promotions of you. So you're kind of doing it naturally, but it's not like they have to be your employees. It's where understanding that interconnectedness between people and obviously what their profiles are. And when we know that, we can start to monetize that. So yeah, there we go.
Absolutely, Robin. If you think about just yourself, if I may use an example, you're a mechanic, which I think when you're delivering value one-on-one, that's very much a role you're stepping into. You're helping people with your systems to develop their own systems. You're sharing that knowledge. You also perform a star role. So, when you're thinking about yourself on stage or yourself as a teacher, or yourself in Facebook, you as a star are needing to get, you've got a lot of value in a star, the things you're saying, but now you need to figure out, how am I going to leverage this value? So someone called Mark Zuckerberg comes along, and he is your partner, because what he's done is he's developed a system for you to leverage your value off when you're performing a star role. So, just keep thinking about it in that way. Even as a one-person business yourself, you can tap into the different energies that different people are providing and creating flow between you without having to have them inside of your team. Though certainly, as your team grows and as you get to that point, bringing some of those skills inside your team certainly become important. The last thing I want to say about the flow and the value and leverage, the example I often use around this is a kite. Now, in particular, if you're thinking about people on the top versus let me go north versus south of this drawing. If you're on the north, if you're a creator, lots of big ideas, mechanics, stars, big ideas, lots of vision in the future. And if you think about a kite, it just wants to fly high in the sky. It's high, so firstly, its perspective is much bigger. It's looking down with lots of perspective, so it can see far into the distance, onto the sides. But if you have no one holding the string, that kite flops and lands on the ground very quickly. And that's the team at the bottom. They are the team that holds the string. They are grounded, quite literally. The way the teams on the profiles on the bottom experience the world is through their senses. What can they touch, feel, hear? Not what's in their mind, not their imagination, not the big perspective, but what can they sensually experience right now in the world. And they are the person that holds the kite string and allows the kite to fly. And similarly, if you have someone on the ground who doesn't have a kite, they're just standing there holding a piece of string, and that's not worth much either. So it's this constant concept of flow, of bringing what you do, understanding and we're going to spend quite a bit of time on it. Hopefully I'll get through the rest of this quite quickly so we can actually get into these relationships so that you can understand them. Okay.
And also just to add on this, that these graphics that Lyndon is bringing up is the same graphic of the wealth dynamic square. So the top is the creator, we've got star, then supported to 3 o'clock, deal maker at 4:30, trader at 6 o'clock, accumulator at 7:30, lord at 9 o'clock, mechanic at 10:30, and obviously creator at 12. So imagine it overlays this, right? So that's just have that vision in your mind.
Thanks, Robin, because once again, everyone remember that the profiles sit on top of the 4 energies. So we really are delving into the energies tonight more than the profiles, and that's where there can be some learning. Another tool, just in terms of understanding the energies, is how your attention and primary representation, how you experience the world. What is your sensory space that you feel and make most comfortable in? This becomes really interesting when you're working with a team, because if you're having to work with a team and understand how to communicate with a particular person who's in a different profile from you, it gives you a guide into what kind of tools to be using. So if you are needing to engage, or if you yourself are in a dynamo, stars, mechanics, creators, you very much visual. Now, visual both externally but internally even more so. And what I mean by that is you see things in your head. You experience the world almost more through what you can see in your imagination than what you can see in real life. So I'm very dominant in terms of dynamo energy. And my kids and my wife often kind of have to wave their hand in front of my face and say, "Dad, are you here?" Because a lot of the times I'm not. I'm off on a journey in my head around something I'm envisaging or something I'm calculating as a mechanic. And even mechanics, their favorite tool is to draw flow diagrams. We're visual, we like to see it. When you're on the strong blaze, it's very auditory. It's the communication. What can I hear? What can I say? That's how you connect. It's where your representation and your attention comes, is when you're experiencing things through your auditory space. Kinesthetic, on the bottom, tempo is all about touch. It's about being here and now. It's what's actually around me. So very much about the sensory perception of what is real, and I use that term real in terms of I can physically touch and prove it. So don't talk to me about a lot of stuff if it's not real, if I can't actually prove that what you're talking about exists and has value. That's where I get my flow and my comfort. And steel is about analytics. It's the clarity, the sweet clarity of analytics when you can figure something out and know it through knowing, through having thought through it and understood it and got it, and then you know it. And that is where you get into a space of flow and comfort. Okay, moving on. What sits in all the middle? Once again, to get into flow, it should be gratitude. Gratitude is the space, like you'll see a lot of the spirit connections in the middle. The pathway to flow is through gratitude. So, Robin, I know tonight's not an esoteric space, so I won't go into this too much. But there are a whole bunch of reasons that you can control what drugs your brain is on at any time. And the greatest way to control the drugs your brain is on is through gratitude. It kicks off all the endorphins and the dopamine you need to be in a flow space. So the chemical process of flow in your brain is very well documented, and through gratitude and appreciation is the quickest way to get your brain to be turning on the right chemicals for you to be in your highest state of flow and maximize your gifts. I'm not going to go into a esoteric talk tonight, but I just do want to mention that as we go through it. Okay, great piece to understand is what questions do people ask based on their energies. So once again, if you're working with different people, understand where your blockage is. And I'll explain that right now. I sometimes get stuck as a mechanic. I know my what. Now, as a mechanic, that is the question I keep asking. What have I got to do? What do I need now? What does this look like? All right. And sometimes I can ask that question again and again and again, and I'm not making progress. I'm not making the breakthrough. I'm not moving. I am stuck. My business is stuck. And this is where a great coach will help you understand that maybe you are asking the question purely from your own perception. And this is where you need to get in flow by asking a different question from a different profile space. So maybe the question I need to ask to move my business forward is not what am I doing next, but who am I going to be engaging next? So it's often about not what do I need, but it might be who do I need to unlock something. Or it's not what am I going to do, but when do I actually do this? And it's not what am I going to do, but the how it does get done. And this is once again the value of flow, is understanding when the question you are naturally asking is not the appropriate question at that moment. And you need to then move to ask one of the other three questions. So how do you know? Well, flow is the answer. When things don't feel like they are flowing, you are likely stuck in asking your key question, and you need to be shifting to asking some of the other key questions. And for that, you can ask them yourselves. So just because I'm a dynamo, it doesn't mean I can't ask who. The fact that it's not my default question that I go to all the time might be a limiting factor. But then I should be going and finding people who ask the who questions and bringing them into my sphere of influence so that I can continuously be growing my expanded sense of questions I'm asking. The one that gets me moving again quickest is the one that gets me into flow. That's the one that I should be using at that particular time. Can I move on from that, Robin? Nothing that's coming up. Perfect. So just quickly, the question that always sits in the middle, once again, we're talking about spirit, is why? And that's a question we should all be asking ourselves. Why is this important to me? Whether it's work, whether it's anything else, the why is the fundamentals that you should always be moving from. Which brings me to what is your need? So we've talked about the potential of what questions you ask naturally, but what is it you need to be in flow? What do you need, but also what do you need to be able to give to your team? And once again, the energies have different requirements. At the top, you need significance. Now, I'm not saying this as an egotistical space. This is not, I need to be important. It's a deeper, I feel value when I have contributed significantly to something, where my big vision has changed the world. Because Dynamo Energy operates at a high perspective, they expect from themselves that their impact is at a high perspective, at a big level. and then they need that significance to help drive and motivate to bring them into flow. Blaze likes variety. They need to be engaging both intellectually but also real human contact with a variety of people. And in a variety of ways. So if they are doing the same thing with the same person day in, day out, a person who is a blaze energy or has blaze energy will get bored very quickly. The bottom tempo, remember, is about the here and now, and they need connection. They need to feel a real-time connection to the thing, to the idea, to the people that they are working with, and steal that certainty, knowing through your understanding, through you having worked it out, that you can be certain is where you get a need met. So once again, if you're working with a team, our company has come through a period for the last 3-4 years of being a financial technology startup. We operate in an environment of continual change. The technology is changing, the regulatory framework is changing, and we are breaking down old industries and old ways of doing things and starting from scratch. There's not a lot of certainty in that space. And I know that when I'm dealing with a large portion of our team who are introverted often because they are coders for the technology or they are compliance people, we have to find out in this realm of uncertainty how to create certainty for them. And that is core to understanding flow at a team level, is knowing who your team is and what they need so that you can get in there. So it's not so much about one or the other. It's about which one is my most dominant and my default and where I find the most flow. However, without the others, even at an individual level, without a component of that in your life, you will not be whole. So think about yourself as you are at an individual level. We are the full entirety of all these spectrums. And if you, just like in a team, if you only had significance and variety and had no certainty and connection, just like in a team you would feel unbalanced, so in a individual would we feel like there's something missing. But that doesn't mean that they are dominant or that they are that you need to prioritize them. But you would feel the absence in your own life if you had no connection. You know, there would be some part of your spirit in the middle that does need an aspect of that. But we don't need them all on the same recipe, if you can think about it that way. So yes, absolutely, we need a bit of them all, but where you get the most is where your energy center sits. Perfect. So different viewpoints. Once again, you'll begin to see here now we're repeating a lot of the same conceptual space, just giving it different names. So Dynamo is all about perspective. It's high level. It's what's the long-term picture. Whereas on the bottom, Tempo is all about perception. What can I perceive right here and right now? Finer detail. Perspective is big picture. Perception at the bottom is very much about detail. It's about what can I touch here, feel right now, right here. Blaze is, and color is not so much, we're not talking color in terms of red, blue, green. We're talking color in terms of, if you can think about the blaze energy of extroverts, there's a lot of boisterous energy. It's a lot of activity and fire and vibrancy. And that's when we mean color. They bring that perspective of we need creativity and vibrancy and energy in our space. Whereas what the steel on the other side brings is this viewpoint of real clarity. I think Robin, having experienced some of his coaching, Robin really brings a lot of the steel energy to his coaching practice. You know, we might rock up and be all enthusiastic and full of color, and he'll come back to it and say, that's really great. Now give me clarity. What's going to happen? Why do you want to do this? What's your next step? Have you sorted this out? And that's really that value of the steel. I'm trying to move through these quite quickly, Robin, because I do want to just touch on the next series.
Agreed.
So are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Great. So leadership styles. Once again, if you're in a team, very interesting. If you're not, don't worry about it too much. Task-based, because you've asked the what, you're going to ask the task-based questions, and you're going to try and drive your team through task orientation. If you're on a blaze energy, it's going to be collaboration. It's going to be, how do we do this? What do you think? I'd like to add to this. What's the collective? How do we collaborate on a project and a decision and on an outcome? Tempos, they like to tick boxes. So it's activities. You're going to do this, I'm going to do that, and that's great, and let's tick the box. Let's get it done. And still, leadership is very calculated. And when we mean by calculation, it's very driven by numbers, very driven by analytics. And you're going to ask for data, and you're going to want to make decisions based on data. So whether someone wants to collaborate or not, you're going to go, I don't really care, just bring me the data. So it's very much a leadership style of data and analytics. Now, once again, very important to understand your own path, but also understand that that doesn't necessarily make it right in every context. And I'm going to explain that probably in about 2 or 3 minutes around understanding that you are not always the right leader for your team. You need to identify what stage you are in a entrepreneurial cycle and make sure you have the right leader for that stage of the entrepreneurial cycle. And when I say leader, I'm not saying that they have to be the CEO. What I'm saying is who is taking the leadership at that moment? Who is driving the next phase of your business? Who is guiding your team or your own work in what you need to do? And even as individual entrepreneurs, for those of you who are sole person entrepreneurial spaces, understand where your business cycle is, because then if you are not the right leader for yourself in that point, that's when you go and get a coach or someone else who can help you bring their leadership to your own business in the right process and the right time of your particular space. Once again, at Spirit, we should all be contribution style leaders. That is the path to flow. It's been proven. Once again, I'm not going to get into that tonight too much. But if you want to get high performance teams that are in flow, it's leaders who are contribution and gift based. And I don't mean gifts as in, a bottle of wine or thank you for high performance. I mean, you are bringing your gifts to the team rather than being demanding of the team and just taking their gifts. Leadership is a service orientation, and those are the teams that get into flow the quickest.
If I can just add something onto that as well, now that you actually even put those other things in there. One of the definitions that I found confusing here, because it very much also comes from some of the international wording, when they say task-based, for us, task in South Africa often means the day-to-day tasks as opposed to the vision. So some people might say, well, what's the difference between a task and an activity? So in this context, the task actually refers to as vision-based leadership. If you think of Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, they painted this big picture and they're saying, this is where we want to go. Who wants to join us? Rally up and go. I mean, we look at Elon Musk with SpaceX at the moment and Tesla, and he's out there like the vision. We want to go into the space. We want to create an impact, and it rallies people to come into that leadership, right? Which is how things start. Maybe I'm going to check in, and we're going to just touch base on on the business cycle as it goes from we'll get to that, because then this will all start making sense, especially where Lyndon made the comment about, the stage that your business is in, or the phase that your business is in, relates to what leadership style may be needed, right? And therefore you may not be the right one. And that will make perfect sense when you start looking at the leadership styles, because you're going to need disruptors, you're going to need stabilizers, you're going to need systemizers, who bring in that repetition and predictability. And then you're going to need the Elon Musks and the Steve Jobs to disrupt again and to change and to innovate. And then you're going to need the people to grow the businesses, grow the brand. And it actually follows a cycle which all of us could tap into. So, yeah, let's go for those.
Robin, great catch. Sorry, task. So you're 100% right. Elon Musk is a good example. His task, he set his team, was to build rockets that could take you to the Mars. That was his task. And then a tempo leader can step in and say, okay, what activities have we got to get to achieve that task? So great catch. Thanks. Okay, we're almost at the business cycle. The last piece I want to talk about is just the differences amongst the profiles. So now we're back to profiles. This is really interesting for me, and I find this fascinating, that when you ablaze energy, it doesn't necessarily mean you like people. So for those of you who may know, there are people like Gareth Cliff, shock jock, radio DJ, and actually he is horrendous with people. On a one-on-one, he himself will acknowledge it, but even the people around him will say he is horrible with people. So he is Blaze, he is an extrovert, he is about people, but he is at his most comfortable when it is 1 to 10,000 people, where he is the one. So he doesn't have to do much listening, okay? All he has to do is a lot of speaking. And that's when his comfort zone is. When it comes down to dialogue and actually listening, and he doesn't have the control on that, then he's actually really uncomfortable and he doesn't like it, and people don't often like him in that space either. So just because you're a blaze energy doesn't mean that you're really good with people. And the same is on this side. Often some of the best leaders of teams are introverts because what they value is relationships where they feel safe and where they can create long-term relationships with people. So if you've got a team that needs security, that needs trust, having an introverted leader is often some of the best people management skills you can get, because introverts will build long-term relationships with people they know and like, whereas blaze energy will often build relationships with new people and will need new people through their space. So just bear in mind, these things are not as simple as I'm blaze energy, therefore I need to lead teams and be good with people, and I'm an introvert to steel energy, and therefore I'm not good with people. There's nuances that I'd just like to bring into the space. So once again, if you have a look at this in terms of some of the differences and the skills and the presence, we've got the how, what, who that we spoke about. We've got the speaking versus listening on the blaze side, and the people who are great supporters love dialogue. If you sit in time when they're having a conversation, how much time is spent talking versus listening, they're about 50-50. You can literally, if you're sitting with a deal maker, they might not say much in the entire hour you're chatting to them, but they will certainly keep you talking. They'll be engaged. They'll be listening. It's not that they're disengaged. They're just very good at listening and getting you to talk. On this side, when we're getting to the analytical, the mechanics are constantly trying to improve. All right. So we do very little studying. We find out just enough to understand the big picture, and then we go and try and fix it. Whereas if you are an accumulator at the bottom, you're not really interested in what you're going to do with the data. You just want the data, and you want lots of it until you have so much that you feel comfortable because you have it. And it's the lords in the middle on the left-hand side who are saying, listen, I need enough data so that I can improve it, but I'm not trying to reinvent the system. I'm just trying to make the system I've got better. So these are where the complexities come through in understanding the underlying energies and how they might relate specifically to your particular profile. All right, let's dive into, we all know the A profiles, so I'm not going to spend time on them. But what I would like to talk about is the stages of your business and the stages of the enterprise. So we're going to start at the top where it says proven, and what is the role of a creator? So a business that's life cycle is in the creative energy is to get a concept and prove that it has possibility. So not just an airy-fairy idea that is still in the thinking stage, they still need to take it to the stage of proven minimal viable product. So have I got a good idea? Yes, but I need to have at least 3 or 4 clients to prove that someone's actually going to be prepared to pay for it. Okay, that's where the creator is in their most flow, and in your team, that's where the creators should be unleashed. It's where they should not be held back. They should not be reined in. They should be fully supported if that is the stage of your business I'm in. So we've just come out of this phase with our business. Probably about 2 years ago, we had emerged from a creative stage. We are breaking down the boundary of how financial systems work globally around real estate investing for commercial real estate. And we spent a lot of time proving it, getting the first deals through, getting investors to buy in, getting regulators to have a look at us and go, okay, we're prepared to engage. Once we've proven it, the problem if you leave a creative energy in your team as the boss, as the driving, and they'll then want to go and do the next one. Before you've even made real money, they're trying to get your next product on the table. So you have to start shifting and say, okay, we've got 3 or 4 people to buy it, but that's not enough. Now we've got to get a whole bunch more people interested. We've got to really get our brand attraction growing. Instead of getting the interest of 3 people, how do we get the interest of 3,000 people or 30,000 people or 30 people? Now I've got the attention of these people. They're going to start wanting stuff from us. So you need that supporter energy that's going to start saying, okay, guys, let's work this through. How are we going to make it? How are we actually going to make this thing work? How are we going to take the vision of the creator and start driving it into a team that can actually deliver, that can operate? So your leadership at this stage needs to be a supporter who can be the bridge between the vision of the creator and connect him to the tempo energies of let's get stuff done. That's why at this point, that supporter role in leadership is so important. Okay, so now you've got a team, you've got an idea, you've attracted a whole bunch of attention, you're starting to get it working. But now you really want to grow. Just if I can, keep in mind value, leverage. Value, time to leverage again. Okay, so now I'm back to market connections. How is it that we're going to go from having 20 people or 30 people to 3,000? Well, a deal maker will come along and connect me to the next 30,000 and the next 30,000 so that I don't have to do it myself. That's the quickest expansion, right? So, but I'm still within the one business. I'm still running one system, but I'm leveraging through market connections through someone who's going to go make deals for us. The next stage in an enterprise is when you get to be a tradable entity. So you can actually come and say, hey guys, look, we've got a really good business. It's operating well. So would you like to buy shares in it? You might not be listing, but you're at that point where it's now tradable, where you've proven everything, you're expanding, and now you can get trading. Now, the importance of leadership at this point is it's about understanding the timing. Is this the right timing to be doing this? And when is the right time to go and try and make these deals? And that's where the tempo energy at a leadership level is very good. They're hands on the ground. They know what the market is doing. They know what the market is saying. They know what people are looking for. And they can say, yep, now is the right time to go and do this, or no, it's not the right time. You don't want to go into a market at the wrong time and try and sell either shares in your company or expand what you're doing. Okay, now you're stepping into the next space, which is saying, okay, we've started getting shareholders, we started selling our company, let's bank this. Let's take it, let's make money. This is where the accumulator comes in and really pays attention to your numbers, making sure that everything's there, that you got the right stuff, that it's being very process driven, ticking the minute boxes to make sure that there's nothing that's going to go wrong. The accumulators are all about risk management. How do we reduce risk drastically to the least risk possible? And that's when you get the bankable asset. So you've come through the cycle of your business. You're not at a point where you want to reduce risk totally so that you can just make sure that whatever you've invested and done and your team is built up until this point is at a point where there's risk reduction. All right, now come in the Lords. It's the next phase of your business. You're running smoothly. You've reduced risk. You've got all the other functions happening. And now you want to squeeze the last amount of money out of your model as it currently exists. And that's where the Lords come in and they start cutting costs. They start squeezing the margin, figuring out analytically how to make the next buck, the next piece of money. And then you've got to a point where you said, great, we've done all of that. Now can we replicate this? Can we go and create another, systemize it, franchise it, and then expand it and make it grow through leveraging? Once again, just keep remembering value, leverage, value, leverage. You've just added value by the Lords having a look, creating value. Now you need to say, okay, can we take our next step, the left leg, and leverage licensable systems? You're taking it, you're franchising it, you're putting it out there, and your business is now at a point where unless you innovate, unless you create something new, your business is going to start on the decline path, where the average business has a curve, so a curve this way. It's now going to start on the decline in terms of revenue, in terms of profitability. Other people are going to come into the market, they're going to copy, and now you need to see, okay, can we prove our next concept? Can we launch the next cycle of our business into the world? Now, the theory of all of this is great at a high level. We can understand it when we're talking about big business, but you can also apply this to your own business, even if you're a one-person entrepreneur, to understand where in this are you. Are you at a point where you've just proven it? Or are you at a point where you're starting to attract more attention to your brand? And because of that, are you getting squeezed in terms of your ability to actually operate and deliver? Now that you're operating and deliver, can you go and find other market connection deal makers to bring in more business for you? Right? Then are you starting to get to a point where business is going well? Now you just need to be very hands on the ground, seeing maybe it's time to either bring in partners or expand. Then are you reducing all your risk? Are you then looking for ways to maximize within your existing business model your margins? Can you figure out how to do what you're doing and take it to a wider audience through licenses so that you don't have to be involved as franchises and then, okay, time for me to innovate again. So that was a mouthful, Robin. I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add or if there are any questions that are coming through at this point.
So there were one or two, well, there's a question there about any accumulators here. No. So in talking about these kinds of things as well, I've chatted to some of you around this as well, is because I know what I do, I also know who's looking for my kind of services. So I kind of know what the kind of clients are that I would most attract. And obviously I market to that, right? So there are certain kind of profiles that wouldn't really come into a lot of our circles, which would be the accumulators, traders, and perhaps the deal makers. So right now we've got only one deal maker. We don't have any trader and any real accumulator. As you've seen from the chats, most of you are lords, got quite a few mechanics, and of course we've got quite a few supporters, right? Because we also know the supporters really need the systems and the automation because they've got people and they love that variety, but they're like, yes, I can't handle all of this if I don't have systems. So knowing all of this as a business person gives you incredible insight. And I know we're going to move into that now as well about, well, how do we actually connect with, the work with, or have the insight into how does my profile work with others? But that question around, are there any other accumulators? Not really, right? In the circles that we move in, we're not really going to find them much on the social media per se, not really networking strongly in the kind of stuff that we're doing. So not because there aren't many in the world, it's just in how we've done this. And of course, the people that are looking for my support, it's not going to be the first one that would come onto a setting like this. So interesting one there. Otherwise, going back through the stages of the enterprise and actually seeing more this, how it might apply to some of you in your individual businesses. Like I know, for example, Gavin as a lord, he's his own business owner, but he's at the stage now that he's been so steady and consistent. COVID came, he's had to go online, and he's saying, I have to disrupt now. So he's had to go through a massive disruption phase, which is actually like a creator has had to come in and say, you've got to turn your business model on its end and totally reinvent, which can be super stressful for him, right? We've got a whole lot of supporters here who, one of the biggest challenges you're going to say is, you're great at this connecting, networking, but how do I monetize that, right? So that would be one of the biggest questions, because many of the supporters here are saying, like, how do I actually turn this into a business? And we've often discussed, well, it's the who that you need to really look at and who you need to attract and work on and monetize that component. Quite a few mechanics that we've touched base on this licensable system. You know that our primary drive is actually how do we get ourselves out of our business? In other words, how do we replicate ourselves en masse and make that work, which is why I drive Celine Dile, Tanya, Alan, all of us are like, get your courses out there because that's perfect. That's licensable. It's automated. It's the kind of passive income. I mean, that's why we've got the Airbnb or the other stuff. The lords in here, you're the guys who are optimizing, perfecting. You're kind of saying, Robin, give us your system because we want to just implement it and then we'll tweak it and make it better. In other words, we will squeeze the property. We're going to increase those yields. We're going to do better than that. We want the multi-let because we can actually manage this through strong systems, whereas a supporter out there wants to go and connect with all the tenants or meet and greet the Airbnb guests. So knowing all of this really can unlock a lot about what you're really good at, which is obviously why we're working on that. From the accumulator side, selling to an accumulator, again, coming from marketing perspective, is a challenge because they're going to say, I'm not sure, let me think about it. They're going to say all those objections, they're slow, like the traders, slow. We had that example in one of Lyndon's graphs, is they're not going to just say, yes, I'm going to go and take on coaching. I don't know where I'm going. It's like, they're going to take their time and think twice. So you can start to see perhaps how some of your work and how this all ties in and how it can really actually be interesting from this perspective, especially in where the stage you are in that business. And that might actually start giving you a clue in who you should start looking for to create the leverage or to access the value because you know how to replicate that value in a way that also support you. So again, I'm going to keep checking if there are other questions, but I mean, you can really hear, right, that Lyndon is a master at this. And although he actually doesn't practice this as a coach, this is what he brings to obviously his business. And we are often talking about these kinds of things for years now because both of us have really valued it. And you can actually see just the fluency of it, the way that it all comes together, taking it apart, putting it together. A fantastic teacher, right? You can see that come through. So all of that's great. So I'm ready to carry on. And if there are no other questions, let's get it going.
Sure. Thanks, Robin. We spent our years as teenagers fighting so that we could spend our years as adults just praising each other. So I appreciate that. All right. So where I want to go next is, and really to end up, my sense is from the chat that we've probably got more mechanics than anyone else at the moment online with us. Is that correct?
Yeah. Lords of Mechanics.
Right, brilliant.
Right. I do also would, like I mentioned, the supporters, because one of the biggest challenges is for the supporter to realize where their monetization moments are. And you know, there's this thing, Linda, that comes up quite a lot, and the questions come up, is that when someone's in their flow, and it comes, I don't want to say it comes easy, but they're in their flow, there's this perception which is, but you know, that's what I just do for fun. It's not something that I should be making money off. So, you know, that's the irony, which is, you know, when you get in your flow and you know how to monetize that, that's where the beauty comes, because you're getting paid for something which is in your flow. So for the supporters, this part, and I'm going to see where we can bring this in to really support you. So Lyndon, talk into that if you can at some point, like supporters. It is super challenging for you to figure out how to find your monetization, because you run the risk of becoming the highest paid job salaried person, because you don't know how to break out on your own, because you don't yet have that vision to create. But you need to understand that your network, your relationships, your ability to lead, your capacity, you know, with people is a massive monetization component. And when you realize that you're not taking advantage of them, you're not abusing them, if you're making money out of that process, then a whole new world steps up. So it would be great if we can wheedle that in somewhere in our conversations.
Sure, well, let's go there right now. You're right. Many of the world's most successful CEOs, or the actual CEO behind the CEO, are supporters. So if you think about people like Apple, you know, Steve Jobs was a great CEO, but he was shocking at running a company. His real CEO was a supporter, et cetera, et cetera. So behind a lot of the stars, Elon Musk will be the first to tell you he's a visionary, but he's not who runs his companies. Richard Branson, exactly the same. Some of the best CEOs in the world are supporters, because their value is that they can drive collaboration. Now, if you're an entrepreneur at a soul level, bearing in mind as a supporter, you still have close to you the deal making aspect. So you can certainly monetize there as well. And you do have the star potential. You can move up or down in terms of your wings, as I call them, on the side of your profile. So those are both tools that you have for if you are in a stage in your life where you're more as an entrepreneur by yourself rather than an entrepreneur inside of a team. And please understand that concept. Just because you're part of a team is not meaning that you're not being entrepreneurial. You can be extremely entrepreneurial using your flow inside of a team. But certainly it is a challenge for many of the supporters, because their flow space is when they are driving collaboration amongst a group of people. Now, even if I just say that, it should give you a suggestion as to where to find your flow to your path to wealth. Driving collaboration amongst a group of people. That doesn't mean you have to be inside of a team. Could mean you're in a group of entrepreneurs like this group here, and your role is to drive collaboration. It could mean that you're part of a network and your role is to drive collaboration. But that's really where you're good and where you should be. But every time you do it, make sure you're getting paid for it. One way or another. Don't just do it because you say, this is nice for me and I enjoy it, but I can't possibly be paid for this. You almost need to tap into your deal maker energy. A deal maker will not do anything unless they're getting paid. You know, they're going to go and connect two people, but they're going to make sure that they get a piece of that flow as it goes from the person they connected to the next. Supporters often don't have that automatic, I'm going to put myself in the middle and get some of the flow as it flows through me from one to the other. But do try and make sure that you're monetizing your ability to drive collaboration. And if you need support on how to do that, Robin, as your coach, I'm sure can help you. What I want to do, just because I am conscious of time,
Yeah, so just while we're there, so Dimitri, Dietmar, Stella, Miguel, the supporters out there, like I'm saying to you, just hear what Lyndon has said. Make sure that even if it flows through you, you're tapping into that vein, right? You're monetizing that, because it probably could not have happened without you. There's value there, and money goes where value's added. It's not that people won't pay you just haven't asked.
Absolutely. And as supporters, you're probably best equipped out of all of us to know how to ask. It's just a belief you have to have that says I'm adding value through collaboration, through driving collaboration amongst a group of people, and it's about finding how to express that value so everyone can see it as clearly as it plays out. And I think, once again, if you're in a coaching relationship, it helps you to ask that question: how do I demonstrate this value? How do I account for the value? How can I? And when you want to do that, ask a mechanic, because a mechanic will help you develop the system to show your value to the people you drive in collaboration with. With that in mind, because I am conscious of time and I can't wait to turn the slides off so we can just chat if anyone's got questions. There's a great tool, once again, the I Ching, which is what was developed by Fuxi all these 3,000 years ago. He used these same 8 energies, same 8 profiles, and when you have 8 engaging with 8, you have relationships. So what is the relationship I need to be conscious of as a mechanic when I'm engaging with a star? How does that dynamic work when I, as a mechanic, am engaging with a accumulator? And there are guidelines for each of those directional relationships. Okay, and so what I'm going to share with you now is just some of those guidelines. I will happily share these slides with Robin so that you can go and get your particular profiles guideline and have a look. So what it looks like is this. What should a creator be thinking about? What should they be doing, and what should they be avoiding when they are working with other profiles? And it starts at number 1.1, when you are, as a creator, engaging with other creators. What do you need to be doing? What should you be paying attention to? What should you not be doing? When you are, and they once again, in the probably more esoteric space, the ancient Chinese philosophies around this gave them names: innocence, partnership, caution, standstill, collaboration, conflict, retreat. And it's really interesting to go, and even the names give you an indication of where the potential problems might be. So it's really exciting to be able to have a look at this, and even in your own life and your own business, if you are a creator, start having a look at what you should be encouraging in your relationship with the other profiles and what you should be resisting in your relationship with the other profiles. So I'm not going to go through them in detail. I'm certainly not going to go through all 8 of them. What I am going to do is just jump to the ones that Robin has highlights. So as a supporter, you ignite all around you. It's about enthusiasm. It's about blaze energy. It's about, this is a motivational space, a collaboration space. And this is really where you should be looking to understand what actions you need to take with people, but also what you should be avoiding in that particular relationship. So just for fun, I'm going to use, if you're a supporter and you're listening, let's use Robin as your example and what you should be avoiding or you should be doing with Robin. So in this case, you should stay free of expectation and look out for opportunity if you're a supporter. What you should be doing is moving widely and freely in search of action. Okay, so avoid sticking to old norms or old habits or looking backwards. Now, a lot of that is very esoterical, and you might have to think through exactly what it means. So let's take this in a particular framework. If I am a supporter and I want to go and work with Robin, I need to walk in there and really keep as wide as possible a pathway, but know it's about action. All right, know that that's what we're looking for here. We're looking for the systems and the things that are going to drive action. That's when you're with Robin, that's the space that you should be most open to. What you should not be doing, because remember, what do mechanics do? They like reinventing. They like making something new and better than it was before. So the last thing you should be telling a mechanic is saying, no, but this is how I've always done it. Or this is the way it has always been done. Because at the heart of a mechanic is this drive to improve and create something new for you. So if all you're doing is saying, listen, let's just do it the way I've always done it, it's going to be a natural space to not getting the maximum out of flow. Because remember, that's what these cards are about. It's about how do I drive the maximum flow out of this relationship in that space. Any of our supporters, is there any of these that in reading quickly you've got a question on before we move to maybe giving the mechanics view? As I said, I will share these. So let me just move on. I think we've probably got lords and mechanics. So I probably want to do one more, and then I'm going to actually stop and just line a conversation for the last, how are we doing on time, for the last 10 or 15 minutes. So here you are as a mechanic, and for those mechanics, let's reverse this and say, what is the guideline that if you're a mechanic, for example, that you should be doing with supporters? So the action you should be encouraging is that supporters, so when Robin coaches you, if he was worth his salt, he would be saying, okay, you need to be disciplined. Because if you're not disciplined, you're going to chase everything. It's going to be wild. It's not going to have structure. And Robin's role is to help bring you structure. So his action that he's going to be supporting you, the flow he's going to be bringing to you is to be that you need to be disciplined. He's going to be helping you support being disciplined in refining the rules so that as others are playing the game. Now, what Robin should avoid is getting swept up in your excitement, because you are mesmerizing. You're a supporter. You're going to get excited. You're going to be great. And if Robin gets swept out in that, he loses the ability to deliver his value, which is the value of supporting you to become disciplined in refining the rules that others and yourself need to play to get into flow. So that's just an example of how these cards and how these relationships work. It's a real conscious stepping of a mechanic. What action should you be encouraging and supporting in the people you're working with to bring your value, to bring them into flow? And what should you avoid to disconnect the flow and put a block in that pipe? Any questions from the mechanics on what you see in front of you before I turn the screen off? Absolutely. So if you're a mechanic and you're having a chat to a lord, remember where the lords are strong is they're very good at understanding and mining information out of data. Okay, so the accumulator at the bottom is very good at putting data in. Lords are good at mining that data, and mechanics then take the high level results of that data and want to reinvent the world. So if I'm now a mechanic and I'm dealing with a lord, I've really got to be open to the value that their mining has brought me. Okay, so the action you want as a mechanic is really to be open to the insights that this lord has generated by really having a look at the numbers and looking for the information and the patterns that those numbers are hiding. Okay, what you want to avoid is being a mechanic, which is high level and not dealing so much with the actual information and results, but just in your brain jumping to the conclusions, because that's what we do as mechanics. We jump to conclusions rather than being data driven in our analysis. So what you want to avoid as a mechanic is jumping to the conclusions and to just go in there, because you've created this expectation in your head on the high level that all you're going to do is go in and validate what you think, irrespective of what the Lord is actually bringing to the table from their more studied analysis.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So I asked for a lord onto a deal maker, and the reason is because many of the lords of you out there deal with deal makers, which are often the classic estate agent. So estate agents are a great intersection between bringing time, which is a property on the market now, with the intersection of people and creating a deal out of that, right? Now, that doesn't mean that all estate agents are deal makers as their profiles, but those ones that we really do want to connect with and nurture relationships with are the traditional deal maker. So I'm wanting then just to tap into how would you as a lord tap into a deal maker such that you can actually either target them or nurture that relationship such that the deal maker says, wow, actually, you're the kind of person that I want to have on my little black book so I can send you those deals first. Because remember, as lords, you want the deal to come to you. You're not about to go out there and pace the street and look to see what's in your neighborhood as the most, distressed property. You want the deal to come to you so you can analyze it, so you can run your numbers and make a decision based on data. I mean, that's what Lyndon was saying. So it's going to be so important for you then as one of the other legs in your team, even though they're not directly in your business, you want to have relationships with deal makers who are going to bring you those properties, those deals, right? So how would a lord then, Lyndon, if they come across an estate agent who is most likely going to be a deal maker at some point, the ones that we're wanting, give us some insight into what action should we do and what should we avoid.
Yeah, great. So remember, a deal maker wants the deal, right? So that's what they're chasing. They're chasing the deal. And they will, and many times they're very enthusiastic. They see gold under every rainbow. They chase everything. It's always the best opportunity. That's what a deal maker does, is they find a deal. What value you add to a deal maker if you are a lord is that you are the voice of reason. You are the one that's saying, that's all very well, that's great, but let's actually just, let's have a look at this. Let's really, as they say here, you temper that enthusiasm with actual analytical insight into whether it's a good opportunity or not. Now, how you nurture a deal maker, Robin, is maybe a slightly different question to, are you, what is the symbiotic relationship you and the deal maker have? The answer is, if it's a good deal that they bring you, where you have brought your analytical abilities to decide whether it's a good deal or not, they're going to get a sale, they're going to get money. All right, that's the bottom line. That's their value extract from you, is if they can bring you a deal where through your analytical behavior, you are going to make that sale, it's good for them. Now, absolutely, they would rather have, potentially, that you don't do that and you just buy into their enthusiasm about it without doing your numbers. But then bear in mind there's a disruption in the flow, because you're going to get screwed. You're not going to use your gift, which is analytics, which is the ability to flow through mining the data. So what's going to happen next is that you will not do another deal with them. Okay, does that everyone make sense? So if you are not adding your flow, it won't work. You will not do another deal with them, and then that relationship with the deal maker is finished. They won't be able to continue business with you. Absolutely. So think about it like this. If I bring you a deal, let's say I'm a deal maker and I'm here and I'm saying, this is the best deal ever. It's great. It's amazing. And you don't do what you naturally do as a lord. You don't analyze it. And you just get caught up in the enthusiasm and you say, sure, I'm going to sign the deal. Right? What's going to happen 6 months or a year down the line? Deal's not working. Okay? You didn't do the numbers. You didn't analyze it. It wasn't great. So the next time that estate agent comes to you, are you even going to look at their deal, or are you just going to throw up your hand and say, listen, you brought me a bum deal. Not interested. Don't trust you anymore. So the long-term value for that estate agent has been lost because they are not going to get repeat deals from you. However, if every time you bring them a deal, you are saying, let me do the numbers, let me crunch it, and you find a deal that really works for you because the numbers say it will. The next time they bring you some deals, you're going to say, yep, you know what? The last one you brought me, we had a look at it. It was good, and I'm making money on it. So keep bringing me some more because I trust that you might bring me some crap, but every now and then there's going to be one that works for me, so keep bringing it for me. That will make the estate agent in the long run have flow in their life because you're not going to tell them to get lost because of a bad deal that you didn't bring your value.
If I can just add to that, another way to look at it as well is, imagine this deal maker who's wanting to get the deal done, brings you a deal. You as the Lord don't have your stuff in order, right? So you're not sure how to do your OTPs, how to do the analyzing of whether it's a good property or not. You're stalling because you don't have information. Remember, lords often procrastinate because they don't have the information to make the decision. That deal maker is going to get totally upset or disappointed because they bring you something and you take too long to get it done. If you're in your flow, which is you're organized, you know how to read your information, your data, analyze it, search for it, literally, they're going to bring you the deal, you're going to run the numbers, and you can actually get back to them because that's what they're wanting. They're going to want this deal sorted. They want to bring that time in place, get it done, move on to the next one. So again, there's that scenario, which is you will piss off a deal maker, an estate agent, if you just take forever to actually get your stuff together, right? Because they're going to lose the potential deal, because for them, it's also about the timing. Everyone knows that the timing is going to be critical. So there's another example of, we want to really, the Lord wants to be organized in their flow, systems already. So when the deal comes through, it literally can be processed. And it says it's not that it has to always work, but then the deal maker, that estate agent, is going to realize you're actually legit. You're serious about this. You're not just stalling or just all talk. So there's just that other example of, the two feeding into each other's flows. Okay, great. Okay, so that was that. So let's just open it up. Let's just see what comes there. Michael, of course, says, but what about me? I want to know about a star, please. Tell me. Don't leave me out. So he's asking, what about a star and a deal maker, please?
What you really need to encourage is a partnership that serves both parties, where the star has the ability to really get out there, to say and be in spaces that where you have magnified, where you have got a lot of people listening to a single voice. And what the deal maker can do is get that star in front of different communities, get them in front of different large crowds. So what you want to focus on is really grounding that star, because remember, as a deal maker, you're grounded. You're more tempo energy. So it's grounding the star about what's possible, about making sure that it's realistic and that it's serving all parties. All right. So the deal maker is about serving all parties. What you want to avoid is trying to go it alone, is trying to be leading from the front, is trying to take away the stars' space, their moment of glory, their opportunity to be in front of that. And because you've got a bit of blaze energy to do that. So you really want to perform that role of getting them in front of larger audiences again and again and again, making sure it's benefiting them all, keeping the star grounded through your journey in that relationship.